location about 2 blocks away from the previous night's events.
Think on your feet, you gotta act, you gotta move, you gotta be fast, you gotta be safe. You can really hurt yourself.
A number of people during the course of the robberies, so we knew that he was not afraid to show the weapon.
You're so broken down from the first 5.
I looked at it and knew immediately there had been a bank robbery. I called the office and was told that
solve a case. It's another when you take a proactive posture in an investigation, knowing
who this person is, where he is, and he finally said, "Okay, I'll tell you."
Cold, wet conditions again come into factor, and this is an indicator of
one thing to put pen to paper and to put your thought processes at work and try to.
The month was December in the year 2017 when the law enforcement agencies found themselves in a situation which was the culmination of their nightmares. Facing a highly trained, methodical, and disciplined criminal who was elusive yet so persistent and single-mindedly focused on success that he was able to take on an entire police force and give them the runaround. Conducting a string of bank robberies, hitting some of the banks more than once, Thomas Mixon, a retired US Navy SEAL, turned the entire security structure on its head within 1 month. So it begins. His story began long before its sorry end, when the young sailor Thomas Mixon underwent training called BUDS, which stands for Basic Underwater Demolition SEAL. Only offered to the best of the best, Thomas was able to make the cuts on one of the most difficult training courses the world has ever known with an attrition rate of 75%, which was a huge accomplishment indeed. Once completed, Thomas was given the coveted Trident and assigned to SEAL Team 5, which was based out of Coronado, California. While there, he was deployed 3 times with the Delta Force as point man for weapons and ordnance maintenance, land navigation, and hostage rescue situations, and a specialist in close-quarter combat. After 5 years, Mixon joined a highly classified elite operational team called Red Cell in 1990, a group of American commandos assigned to carry out all of the nefarious activities America does not want you to know about. During this stint, Mixon carried out America's shady business, but also tested out its bases and security infrastructure to check out whether it withstood becoming the target of any criminal activity.
Doing an obstacle load. We got a bunch of obstacles underneath the water out there at about 10, 12 feet. We're gonna be taking out, swimming out.
These guys come here, they really don't know what to expect, so we're gonna push them. We're gonna push them hard. We're gonna see what they have. Think on your feet, you gotta act, you gotta move, you gotta be fast, you gotta be safe. You can really hurt yourself.
we don't look for any kind of personality. There's all sorts of different kind of personalities in the teams, but
it'll test your soul to the very core.
Intense emotion and pain and cold.
Sessions, but also getting through the lack of sleep, having instructors on your back, being hurt all the time.
More cold, wet conditions again come into factor, and this is an indicator of
misery. And sometimes you thought it couldn't get any worse.
And these guys are constantly moving and grooving every second of every day, except for when they're eating. So they got.
In the course of their work, this 14-member team, 13 of whom were from Navy SEAL 6 and 1 at Forest Recon Marine, they learned new skills which included making and using false IDs, dismantling fences, barricading buildings, and even kidnapping high-rank officers and personnel. Some of their most infamous acts were those of planting explosives near Air Force One and launching a command and conquer mission against a submarine base.
You're so broken down from the first 5 minutes. I think by far the toughest part is the daily grind. I don't think any...
Going private. Thomas Mixon had been exposed to all sorts of situations in a very short time as a part of Red Cell, and decided to put his skills to good use by branching out into the privately owned security business. 1990 was a good year to go into the private security business with the advent of the Gulf War. In the course of his venture into the private business, Mixon not only provided private security services to the Saudi royals, but due to the proximity of his work with the Gulf War, it is widely believed that his ventures went far beyond the borders of Saudi Arabia. Yet within 1 year, he quit his position and moved back to Austin, Texas. Back to normality. As soon as Mixon got back to Austin, Texas, he settled down to an existence of normality, far removed from the adrenaline-filled ride of a security business. It is anybody's guess how he reacted to a lifestyle far removed from the high-risk occupation he had pretty much grown up with. But he seemed to be faring so well that he even started his own fitness training business called Fit Frog Personal Training and stylized it as a Navy SEAL training course. On the side, he also enrolled himself in the University of Austin to further his education with a bachelor's in kinesiology. He seemed to be taking on the persona of jack of all trades as he continued his private security consultancy on the side, in between semesters from 2004 to 2007, earning somewhere between $20,000 to $30,000 per month. This jack of all trades obviously had the Midas touch because everything he touched seemed to turn to gold. Once his bachelor's degree had completed, he turned his full focus towards his business and catapulted himself to the next level of success, which ended up with him featuring on the Austin Fit magazine in 2007. Mix had it made, and he was the superstar of his own destiny, which was even more astonishing when he ended up getting his name splashed across the newspapers and on TV nearly a decade later. But this time, due to his bank robberies. From honor to dishonor. What catapulted Mixon from a nobody successful personal trainer to an infamous bank robber is a mystery to this day. Whatever the reason had been, the fact of the matter is that Mixon chose to act on his calculations. On 22nd of December 2017, Mixon entered the IBC Bank located on the Ranch Market wearing a black cap and glasses at 1:15 p.m. He tossed a red bag to the teller and instructed her to fill it with banknotes, leaving the premises as quickly as he came after instructing the occupants to call the police not before counting 30 backwards. When the Austin police units arrived 20 minutes later, the bank teller described the robber as a man in his mid-50s, heightened about 5'11", with a pock-marked face, wearing cowboy boots, who had left the vicinity of the bank in a dark gray pickup truck. The bank robbery investigation team and FBI took over the investigation soon. It turned out that the robber had been carrying a hep bag which had been filled to the brink with banknotes, including bait money. Bait money is designed to do what its name says, bait the victim into spending it so the serialized numbers, which are noted by the law enforcement agencies, turn up and can be traced back to the culprit. Naturally, it was only a matter of time before Mixon got caught. Yet the law enforcement agencies were taken by surprise and quite a lot of annoyance as Mixon once again targeted the same bank and robbed it on January 5th, 2015.
The end of this robbery. Now, more on that in a moment. Back here at this bank, though, it was just minutes after they opened. Two suspects. A stolen car and cash on the street. Investigators Carl Hyde says he feels the same way.
I'm just thankful I wasn't there because it's going to happen everywhere.
ABC Bank, they were robbed as well. Now, we are being told by investigators tonight that they think the man who robbed this...
A white man with a beard and a baseball cap between 5'8" and 5 foot.
I think he's in his 50s or 60s and wearing dark clothing. The suspect was seen heading northbound in a gray...
He entered the bank at 12:05 p.m. and followed the same modus operandi. This time, he asked his audience to count backwards from 60 before calling the cops. And once the cops arrived, Inspector Glasgow reviewed the surveillance footage and was able to glean that the same individual had struck the second time. But it seemed that this individual was not done, as soon he struck another bank. This time on January 1st at 1:15 p.m., the APD responded to a 911 call from Prosperity Bank located on 3401 Northland Drive. This time, there had been a slight change since the culprit had arrived at the bank in a pullover and had pulled his shirt over his face and pointed his arm at the teller, had demanded that she fill the bag, taking well over $8,000 and escaping on foot. While the police were still responding to his actions, the same man struck the same bank once again within 1 week, following the same method, and left the bank with small change in his pocket.
Office. It would take cunning, precision, and patience to capture a master of disguise.
Number of people during the course of the robberies, so we knew that he was not afraid to show the weapon. And looking at the types of banks he hit, the branches themselves, and areas of the city, we came up with a pattern.
Banks quickly, he moved swiftly, he just knew a lot about the policy procedure.
Solve a case. It's another when you take a proactive posture in an investigation, knowing
The of law enforcement and safety of customers and employees of the banks.
Okay, he's taking a lot of care.
The police were left completely perplexed and were scratching their heads as to why this person would rob the same bank using the same method. But they didn't have long to wonder, as once again, another one of the bank's security systems collapsed in the face of a lone individual waving a gun around. On February 26th at 9:20 a.m., Mixon struck the Plains Capital Bank in Austin, wearing a hoodie with which he covered his face. But this time he left with an amazing score of $43,698 in the bag. But unbeknownst to him, taking a ride along with the money were 2 radioactive tracking devices, otherwise known as rats.
So what we had to do is get everybody on board on the same radio frequency. He just knew we were there. And he drove northbound.
I looked at it and knew immediately there had been a bank robbery. I called the office and was told that...
I knew plenty of help was in front of us, coming at us. that did cross my mind that, you know, maybe he ran into a house and was holding a family hostage and would hold
me who this person is, where he is, and he finally said, okay, I'll tell you. Had been exchanged at a location about 2 blocks away from the previous night's events. So
one thing to put pen to paper and to put your thought processes at work and try to
is he knew so much about how we operated that he was probably watching us or listening to us, you know, residential areas that don't have much police presence in them.
The rats. As soon as Detective Glasgow of the APD arrived, he was informed about the possibility of tracking the same individual through the rats. Immediately, Air 1 was dispatched into the air and started tracking the device, which was sending a clear signal. This signal took them to a gray Ford F-150 pickup truck which was parked in the driveway of a suburban Austin residence. APD units were immediately dispatched to the residency, and coincidentally, as they arrived, the homeowner happened to be walking out of his front door. When Inspector Glasgow reached the residence, he informed the homeowner, who happened to be Mixon, that his vehicle might have been used in the bank robbery. Mixon's body language changed immediately and he broke out into a nervous sweat, becoming incoherent, and instead of giving consent, he asked for a lawyer. Mixon was immediately placed under arrest by Detective Glasgow once the police made a sweep of his home and found a treasure trove of evidence linking Mixon directly to the robberies, along with serialized banknotes belonging to the banks he had robbed. Mixon was tried, and on September 6, he was sentenced to 97 months to be served in the Federal Bureau prison. It will not end there, as once released, Mixon will be placed under supervision, but will have to pay $25,943 in restitution. The reasons for Mixon's actions are a mystery. Maybe he had missed the adrenaline coursing through his veins like the good old days of running risky operations, or maybe he was just in some financial straits. A third possibility could be the absolute mathematical certainty of being able to get away with the perfect crime due to the edge provided to him by his training and the obvious loopholes he could see in the security apparatus of the local banks. The loss of his glory was a high price to pay. That's all we have for you folks. Join us next time.